Hello everyone, here is an RC passage taken from CAT 2016. Probably you will not get this passage anywhere else. I want you to try this passage followed by questions on your own before you start watching the explanation. So pause this video. The passage starts from the word widespread and it goes up to the word well, and there are three options, and each option followed by each question followed by four options E, F, G, H. Okay, these are the four options E, F, G, H. Now I want you to try these questions by yourself. Okay, I assume that you have attempted this passage and the questions on your own. Now let me start the explanation. Now all these three questions here are specific questions. But even if the questions are specific, you would like to read the passage before the questions so that you understand its overall structure, because the overall structure will give you its focus. Now, at the beginning of the passage, the author asks a question. Now, remember, and this is a typical structure of the structure of most passages. Then that the structure is when the author begins with a question, mostly he answers that question. So, what is that question? So, you need to read the question a bit carefully. Widespread participation in painful rituals. Rituals, some sort of practice or custom that is that is done traditionally. Now, ritual painful hai. Widespread participation, which means people participate in painful rituals, and this is happening over millennia of human history. So it has been happening over hundreds of years. Now the author is asking the question that given the high cost, why does the practice go on? High cost means it's a ritual which is painful. So even though rituals are painful, why does the practice go on? Why, author asks this question, why do people participate in painful rituals, and why such practice has been going on for years and years? The author asks this question, and the author wants to know the answer of this question. Why do people participate in rituals which are painful? Author begins with saying that part of the explanation might be, which means the author is not sure whether the answer of this question lies in this theory. So there is no need to read this paragraph in detail. Okay. Then the author says it looks like the early anthropologists were right all along. So maybe the answer of this question lies in anthropology. Now, what the author says, that extreme rituals contain an ancient recipe for community. You get a feeling that you are part of community when you participate in extreme painful rituals, right? So the author says here that आपको एक कम्युनिटी की फीलिंग आती है जब आप पेनफुल रिचुअल्स में पार्टिसिपेट करते हो. Then the author says but, and whenever in the passage there are words such as but, yet, however, but I'll write down those important clue words: but, yet, however. Okay, words similar to but, yet, however. Okay, and then on the other hand. So such phrases or words are important clue words. All right, so author says that but they can work both ways. They means rituals can work both ways. Both ways means here the two ways are given. One is pro-social and sometimes anti-social. So not necessarily they are always anti-social, not necessarily they work always pro-social. So rituals sometimes against society, sometimes in favor of society. So they work both ways. Then the author says that they play an important role in shaping identity. So the author is trying to answer this question: why why these rituals go on. Then the author says rituals can give you the feeling of community. They can be pro-social or anti-social. They shape identity, right? Then the author says that the recipe for extreme rituals has survived for millennia in ancient and more modern forms. So it is ancient as well as modern, right? Then the next point comes in this paragraph. The author says that social cohesion is not the conscious goal. So purposefully, matlab, author says people participate in painful rituals, not always consciously, right? So and at the end, the author says extreme rituals can be used to change our world for better or for worse. So in short, this passage is about why people participate in painful rituals. The author tries to get the answers of this question. Now, of course, there is no question what is the main idea of the passage. So we don't have to really worry about what is the focus of the passage. But you need to know the structure, because that will help you in eliminating or choosing certain options, and even though those options are part of specific questions. Now let us look at the question number 1. The success of ice bucket challenge is mentioned in order to suggest that. Now this is a question I often call such questions purpose behind some example, analogy, or specific event, or analogy or comparison, right? So the author here the question is asking you the purpose behind the success of ice bucket challenge. The question is not about ice bucket challenge, but the question is what is the purpose behind mentioning it. Now remember, whenever you solve such questions, what is the method? The method is first identify where this example or event is given in the passage, where it is mentioned, that you have to first locate. And it is in this passage, it is mentioned here, the enormous success of ice bucket challenge, which involves etc 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 etc. So from this line to the end, this example is given. Now the question is not about this example, but about the purpose. Now many times the purpose lies before that example or after that example. Now, after that example, nothing is written. The passage has ended here. So, the purpose must be in the first few lines of this paragraph. Now, we need to read these 4 lines. Now, what these lines tell us: extreme rituals can be used for better as well as for worse. We could harness the positive outcome and prevent etc etc by understanding the apparent connection between suffering and pro-sociality. Pro is something which is positive. We could design kinder communities, okay, empathic workplaces, and efficient charities. So all these points are about positive outcome that can come out of painful ritual. And in order to support that how painful rituals can give positive outcomes, the author gives the example of ice bucket challenge. So we should focus on these 2 words, positive outcome, and that is given in option E. People can participate in painful ritual if they know that their participation will have a positive outcome. So the first option should be the answer. The second option focuses completely on ice bucket challenge. Now remember, the question is not about ice bucket challenge. The question is why it is mentioned. What is the purpose behind mentioning it? So second option is eliminated. The last 2 options: social cohesion is achieved through such challenges. Now social cohesion is a very broad word, whereas the purpose here is very very specific: positive outcome, pro sociality. Social cohesion is a very broad word. Social cohesion is unity of society. The focus is not just unity of society, but the focus is on the positive outcomes, better communities, etc. So option 4, fourth option, should be eliminated because it is very very general. Last option: extreme rituals should be legitimized. To legitimize something is to make something legal. That is completely out of the scope of the passage. So the last option is also eliminated. The answer of the question number 1 is the first option. This is the answer. Now let us look at question number 2. The term efforts justification refers to. So what is the meaning of this term, efforts justification? Now, as the term effort justification is given, it itself suggests that this term must be about justifying justifying efforts, justifying efforts or rationalizing efforts. Now when do you justify something? You justify something which when you want to give the reason, the logic behind something, right? So here this term must be about giving logic behind certain efforts. Now this particular term is discussed in the second paragraph. Now what does the second paragraph say? That a part of the explanation might be found in cognitive dissonance theory, which holds that the cost or effort spent in pursuing a goal is disproportionately higher than its reward. So the effort that you put in to achieve a goal, किसी किसी गोल को अचीव करने के लिए जो आप एफर्ट डालते हो, those efforts, if those efforts are disproportionately higher than its rewards, right? So efforts बहुत ही ज़्यादा, but the rewards are relatively less. When this happens, when such discrepancy happens, then some stress is created, discomfort is created. In order to resolve this difference, we often attribute greater importance to the goal, and this is very important. Which means what? You start justifying the efforts that you are putting in, and those efforts are disproportionately higher than the goal, right? And how do you do that? You start giving importance to the goal because you want to justify your efforts. So greater importance to the goal is the key word here that you should pick up, and that is clearly given in the second option, elevating the value of the goal. You justify the efforts by elevating the value of the goal, which means by giving greater importance to the goal. So option F, second option, should be the answer. Option E, the first option, should be easily eliminated because it says justifying the goal. Now in effort justification, you start justifying the efforts, not the goal, right? You start explaining why I am putting so much efforts. Why I am putting so much efforts? Because the goal is important. So here you justify efforts, not the goal. Goal को justify नहीं कर रहे हो, जो आप ज़्यादा efforts डाल रहे हो उसको justify कर रहे हो. So option E is eliminated. Now the G option, the third option, uses an extreme word, the unachievable goal. Now be careful of such extreme words, unachievable, extreme. Now the author is not saying that the goal is unachievable. He is simply saying that the efforts are disproportionately higher than the goal or the rewards. That does not mean that the goal is unachievable, it is eliminated. Justifying the higher efforts on the basis of the very difficult goal. Again, the author does not say that the goal is very difficult. Now, so be careful of such judgmental extreme words. Many times, such extreme options are not the answers. So option G and H are eliminated. The answer is second option F. Now let us look at the third question, question number 3. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? What can be inferred from the passage? Now, the first option, the collective arousal produced by a painful ritual mostly leads to an antisocial behavior. The author says that rituals can work both ways, which means it can be pro-social as well as it can be antisocial. He does not say that antisocial is more and pro-social is less. So the first option says the collective arousal produced by a painful ritual mostly leads to antisocial. Mostly leads to antisocial, which means antisocial element is much more than pro-social. But the author does not say that antisocial is much more than pro-social. So in fact, he says it can work both ways, either pro-social or antisocial. So option E must be the answer because it cannot be inferred. The question is what cannot be inferred. Be careful of, always read the questions carefully. Many times people ignore this word not. They simply say, simply see the word can. But the question is what cannot be inferred, and E cannot be inferred because the author says that painful rituals can work both ways, whereas this option focuses only on one way, which is antisocial. Therefore, this cannot be inferred. Other options: watching a match on TV is not always preferred by those for whom the behavior of the audience matters. This is all about being part of the community. It is given in the this paragraph, in which the author talks about modern forms of painful ritual. Here the author says that we travel great distances to attend football matches, right? Why do we travel? Because we get the sense we want to be part of the audience. We want to be the part of the audience, though we can watch that match on TV, right? So this option can be inferred, but the question is what cannot be inferred. So this is eliminated. Um, taking part taking part taking part in a painful ritual is not a recent phenomenon, right? It's not a recent phenomenon because it is ancient. It is happening over millennia of human history. So this can be inferred, but the question is what cannot be inferred. So this option is eliminated. Last option: it is not necessary that people participate in an extreme ritual with an explicit social purpose. Now, this can be inferred from this part of the passage. Social cohesion is not the conscious goal, which means that people participate in painful rituals not always with a conscious goal, right? So, the goal is not always explicit. The goal is not always explicitly clear. Sometimes people participate just because it is a tradition. It is a tradition that they are supposed to participate. So that is what is given in this particular paragraph. If you read this paragraph, you'll come to know that this option can be inferred from this paragraph. And the question is asking what cannot be inferred. So this last option is also eliminated. So the answer of the question number 3 is first option, E.